Beloved soul, when death visits a home, it does not take only the body of the one departing, it leaves an emptiness that echoes in the chambers of the heart. And when a husband or wife is taken, the one who remains feels as though half of life's melody has been silenced. The widow sits alone where once there was laughter and shared companionship. Her eyes fall on familiar places, the chair by the window, the pillow on the bed, the cup on the shelf, and each one seems to whisper absence. This is a sacred sorrow, and I speak to it not as an outsider, but as one who has seen how deeply human hearts can break when love, once embodied in flesh, seems to vanish into air. Yet, beloved, let us not stop at the sorrow, for every grief carries within it the seed of awakening. What the world calls widowhood, I call a summons, a call to look beyond the veil, to see that love does not end with the body, nor does companionship die when flesh returns to dust. It is in these hours of deepest loss that the soul is invited to discover the higher truth. Death does not part us from love. It only strips away the form so that we may seek the essence. When the widow feels abandoned, heaven whispers, "No, beloved, your companion walks still, not in the house of clay, but in the house of light." Think of a candle flame. When it is blown out in one room, does its fire cease to exist? No, it is lit again in another place. So too the soul of your beloved has not perished. It burns now in a chamber unseen to your eyes, but never unseen to God. Widowhood is painful because the eyes long for form, but it becomes sacred when the heart learns to seek presence instead of shape, essence instead of image. I summon you, therefore, to see widowhood not as an end, but as an invitation, a call to perceive life as larger than flesh, as more enduring than the body. I summon you to reverence the love that remains, for love is immortal. And I summon you to prepare, for into this sorrow there is a question we must ask. A question that, when spoken with compassion, can shift the widow's vision from the emptiness of absence to the fullness of divine presence. To know that question, we must first face the fear of separation and expose it for what it truly is, an illusion. Beloved one, the greatest weight that falls upon the heart of a widow is the fear that she has been separated forever from the one she cherished. She asks in silence, though sometimes through tears, "Where are you now? Will I ever see you again? Has love been broken by death?" This fear, left unexamined, becomes a chain that binds her to sorrow. Yet Yogananda taught us that death does not separate souls. It only removes the costume of flesh. The play continues. The actors have not vanished, only stepped behind the curtain to change their garments. You must understand, the body is but a stage prop, a cloak worn for a few decades. The soul is eternal, and its bond with other souls is woven not in bone or blood, but in the fabric of spirit. When a husband departs this world, he has not ceased to exist, he has merely slipped into another room of God's house. To the senses it feels like absence, but to the awakened heart it is only transition. Just as you do not mourn when an actor exits the stage, knowing he will return in another act, so too must you learn to see death. The illusion of separation is the sorrow. The truth of eternal union is the balm. Imagine standing on a shore as a ship sails away. To your eyes, it grows smaller and smaller until it disappears beyond the horizon. Do you say then, it no longer exists? No, beloved, it is as real as ever, simply beyond your sight. So too with the soul of the departed. You can no longer see their face or hear their voice, but they continue their voyage, sailing in waters invisible to your physical eyes. Fear whispers, "They are gone," but truth answers, "They are here, just unseen." This is the illusion widowhood must expose, that love has ended. In reality, love can never end, for it is born of God, and God Himself is love everlasting. The form through which that love was expressed has changed, yes, but the essence abides, unbroken, immortal. When the widow grasps this, her fear begins to dissolve, and in its place arises a new question, not of despair, but of hope. And it is this question, asked with reverence and faith, that opens the doorway from grief to communion. Let us now enter into that question, the transforming key that Yogananda placed in our hands. Beloved, when sorrow weighs heavily and the mind circles endlessly around absence, the heart needs a new direction. Words alone cannot heal grief, but a question asked with divine authority can pierce through despair and open the soul to light. Yogananda, in his compassion, gave us such a question to ask of any widow. Not a question of curiosity, nor of idle comfort, but one that shifts her gaze from shadows to radiance. That question is this: can you feel that your beloved now lives in God's light, and can you join them there in spirit? This is no ordinary question. It is a holy summons. It does not ask her to cling more tightly to memories, nor to drown in sorrow, but to awaken to the greater truth, that her loved one abides in the eternal presence of God. It reminds her that love is not confined to form. It is a bridge of light between souls. When she is asked this question sincerely, something stirs within. The grief that was heavy begins to loosen, for the heart realizes, I am not cut off. I can meet them where they are by rising in spirit, by entering the same divine presence. It is as though a window is opened in a room that has long been closed. At first, the widow may resist, for pain has become her companion. But when the question is allowed to enter deeply, she discovers that her beloved's presence has never left. It was simply veiled by her sorrow. Just as clouds obscure the sun but cannot extinguish it, grief veils love but cannot erase it. The question removes the clouds, letting her feel the warmth of the light again. Do not underestimate the power of this shift. In that moment, the widow's grief begins its transformation into communion. She ceases to cry only for what is lost and begins to feel what is eternal. She realizes that death did not erase love. It expanded it, inviting her to meet her beloved not in memory but in spirit. This is why Yogananda urged us to ask this sacred question, because it awakens hidden power in the heart, the power to lift one's love into eternity. And when she answers this question not with her lips alone, but with her heart, something miraculous occurs. The tears that once burned with despair become tears of release, of surrender, of recognition. The widow discovers that she is not abandoned, nor is her love in vain. It is alive, waiting for her in the presence of God. And so the question transforms pain into strength, sorrow into communion, death into doorway. Let us now see how this sacred asking becomes not only a question but an action, a step of transcendence that awakens courage to love beyond form. Beloved soul, once the sacred question has been asked and received, the widow stands at a threshold. She can remain clinging to the memory of what was, or she can take a step into the wider sky of divine remembrance. This step, this action, is what transforms the weight of widowhood into the strength of eternal companionship. Action here does not mean outward deeds alone. It means the movement of the heart, the willingness to love in a new way, beyond the boundary of form. Love, when tied only to a body, feels broken when the body departs. But when love is lifted into spirit, it becomes expansive, limitless. The widow who dares to answer, "Yes, I can feel my beloved in God's light, and I will meet him there," has already taken that transcendent action. In that moment, she shifts from clinging to what has gone to embracing what eternally remains. Her grief is not denied, but it is transfigured, like clay placed into a furnace and emerging as porcelain stronger, purer, radiant. Picture a river. In its early course, it flows narrowly, bound by banks. When it reaches the ocean, it widens, loses its limits, and becomes part of something vast. So too is human love when it matures through loss. At first, it flows through the channel of one form, one face, one body. But when that form is gone, love is invited to expand, to merge into the ocean of divine love. This does not erase the beloved. It magnifies them, for now they are embraced not only in memory but in eternity. Such action requires courage, for the heart must let go of its insistence on form. Yet courage is born naturally when one realizes that love has not died but has ascended. The widow who dares to love in this new way discovers that her beloved is not farther but nearer, for he is met in prayer, in meditation, in still moments when God's presence is felt. By acting on the truth revealed by the sacred question, she steps out of the narrow room of grief and into the spacious temple of spirit. This is the transcendence Yogananda wished for every grieving soul, not denial of love, but its expansion, not the end of companionship, but its elevation into a form that no death can sever. And when this courage is awakened, the widow no longer lives as one half of a broken whole, but as a radiant soul walking with God, accompanied invisibly yet truly by the one she loves. From this transcendent step arises a new confidence, not in the fleeting security of form, but in the eternal presence of spirit. Let us now explore how this confidence, once awakened, becomes the unshakable ground on which the soul stands. Beloved, when grief is lifted into the light of divine remembrance, it blossoms into something unexpected: confidence. Not the fragile confidence of the ego, which depends on circumstances, but the deep assurance of the soul, which knows itself as eternal. The widow, once bowed beneath the weight of loss, begins to stand taller not because the absence has vanished, but because the presence has been revealed. She begins to realize, I am not alone. I was never alone. The love I shared lives now in God, and in God I too shall live, until we are one in His light. This realization is like the sun rising after a long night. At first, the dawn is faint, a dim glow on the horizon, but gradually it grows into brilliance, scattering the shadows. So too does the confidence of the soul spread through the mind and body, bringing clarity and strength. The widow no longer feels cast adrift on a sea of sorrow. She feels anchored to the mountain of spirit. Storms may still blow, memories may still stir tears, but beneath it all runs a steady current of faith. My beloved is safe, my love is eternal, and my soul is held by God. Yogananda often compared the soul to a mountain. Clouds may gather around its slopes, winds may batter its sides, rains may fall in torrents, but the summit remains bathed in light, untouched by storm. This is spiritual confidence, the knowledge that beneath the passing clouds of grief, the soul stands firm in its divine nature. To the widow, this realization is life-changing. She no longer measures herself by what has been taken, but by what can never be taken. Her identity as spirit, her union with God, her unbreakable bond of love. From this place of confidence, new strength arises. She finds herself able to live not in resignation but in purpose. She may speak kindly to others in grief, offering them the same comfort she has found. She may rediscover joy in simple things, knowing that joy is not betrayal of her beloved, but communion with Him in spirit. This is the hidden power of the soul. When it remembers its true nature, it draws courage, faith, and serenity from an inexhaustible source. Beloved, confidence in God is not arrogance, it is humility. It is the recognition that all strength comes from Him, and that in His presence there is no separation, no loss, no death. This is the confidence Yogananda wished for every widow and indeed for every soul. To live not in fear of what life can take, but in certainty of what Spirit always gives. And from this confidence flows a daily practice, a simple discipline of remembrance that keeps the heart anchored in God and the bond with the beloved radiant in light. Let us now explore this sacred practice of inner bravery, given for widows and for all seekers of truth. Beloved soul, courage is not born in a single moment. It is cultivated like a garden, tended daily until it flowers into serenity. For the widow, as for any seeker touched by loss, the transformation of grief into confidence must be nourished by practice. Without a daily rhythm, the mind easily slips back into shadows. But with steady remembrance, the heart grows strong, and the presence of the beloved becomes not a memory of the past but a companion in the eternal present. Each morning upon awakening, sit quietly with eyes uplifted to the spiritual eye. Whisper inwardly, Beloved, I know you live in God's light, and there I meet you now. Let these words become a bridge that lifts your thought from form to essence, from absence to presence. Do not strain to visualize their face. Instead, feel the vibration of their soul as light, as joy, as the fragrance of love. In this way, your morning begins not with heaviness, but with communion. During the day, when memories arise, do not push them away. Instead, transform them into offerings. If the thought of your beloved makes you ache, breathe it upward. Lord, I send thee this love. Carry it to them as blessing. Imagine the memory as a flower placed on the altar of spirit. Soon you will find that every recollection, once a chain, has become a prayer. In this way, the widow is never trapped by her past. She is continually lifted by it. In the evening, before sleep, light a small candle or close your eyes and picture a flame within. Speak to your beloved as you once did, but now with freedom. I release you into God's joy. I join you there in spirit. This is not denial of love, it is its fulfillment. By blessing them into freedom, you yourself are freed. Sleep then in that awareness, and often you will dream not of loss but of meeting, for the soul responds when invited into light. This practice is not only for widows. Every seeker faces loss of parents, of friends, of seasons of life, and in every loss lies the same invitation, to see beyond the illusion of separation and to live in eternal presence. To practice daily remembrance is to live with bravery, for it is the courage to insist that love is stronger than death, that spirit is greater than sorrow. Beloved, when you ask the sacred question of a widow, can you feel that your beloved lives in God's light, and can you meet them there? You are planting a seed. When she nourishes it with daily practice, the seed grows into a tree of strength, sheltering her in peace and bearing fruit for all who come near. And so, what began as grief becomes guidance. What began as loneliness becomes communion. What began as widowhood becomes a revelation. That love is eternal, and that every soul, whether here or beyond, abides forever in God. At age 8, I stood crying in our garden, desperate to see my deceased mother one final time. Suddenly, she materialized before me, radiant, loving, real. "My child," she whispered, "I am more alive now than ever before." That moment shattered everything I thought I knew about life and death. Little did I know, it was just the beginning of a journey that would reveal the true nature of existence itself. My dear friend, I am Paramahansa Yogananda, and tonight I want to share with you why my autobiography has transformed millions of lives across the globe. What you're about to discover isn't just another spiritual book. It's a roadmap to your own divine destiny, written by one who walked the complete path from desperate seeking to joyful finding to ultimate becoming. You see, if you're watching this, your soul is calling for something more. Perhaps you feel spiritually hungry but confused about life's deeper meaning. Maybe you're scientifically minded but can't bridge the gap between ancient wisdom and modern understanding. Or perhaps you're successful in the world but feel empty inside, knowing there must be more to existence than what meets the eye. I understand this longing because I lived it. For years I searched desperately among India's greatest saints, hoping someone could show me the way home to God. What I discovered through miraculous experiences, perfect masters, and practical techniques is that the divine isn't somewhere far away. It's the very essence of who you are right now. Unlike philosophers who theorize about God, I live with Him daily. Unlike mystics who speak in riddles, I offer practical techniques tested in the laboratory of my own experience. Unlike teachers who promise future heaven, I show you the kingdom within that's available right now. You'll receive not just inspiration, but scientific methods, Kriya Yoga, energization exercises, and meditation techniques that have transformed householders and monks alike. By our time together's end, you'll understand why world leaders like Gandhi, visionaries like Steve Jobs, and millions of ordinary seekers have found in these pages the answers they've been searching for. More importantly, you'll have the keys to begin your own journey from human limitation to divine realization tonight. Come, let me take you through 3 moments when heaven touched earth, revealing the extraordinary that lives within the ordinary. The first happened when I was just a child. My beloved mother had passed away, and my heart was broken. I couldn't understand how someone so loving, so real, could simply vanish from existence. Night after night I wept, calling out to her, begging God to let me see her one more time. Then it happened. I was standing in our garden, tears streaming down my face, when the air around me began to shimmer. A beautiful light formed before my eyes, and there she was, my mother, but more radiant than I had ever seen her in life. Her form was luminous, her face peaceful beyond description. "My darling child," she said, her voice like music from another world, "why do you weep for me? I am not dead. I am more alive now than when I wore that heavy physical body. Death is just changing clothes, nothing more." She reached out and touched my forehead, and instantly I felt a peace I had never known. "You will understand these mysteries one day," she promised. "You will help others know that love never dies, that consciousness is eternal, that what people call death is just a doorway to greater life." As quickly as she had appeared, she faded, but the experience remained burned into my soul. From that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that consciousness survives the body, that love transcends all boundaries, that what we call the physical world is just the surface of a much grander reality. This vision didn't just comfort a grieving child, it planted the seed of my life's mission. I had to understand these mysteries. I had to find teachers who could explain how such things were possible. Most importantly, I had to learn how to help others experience this same divine truth for themselves. Years passed, and my hunger for spiritual knowledge only grew stronger. I read every scripture, visited every holy place, but something was missing. I needed a living teacher, someone who had walked the path to its end and could guide me step by step. I searched everywhere. I met saints who could perform miracles, scholars who knew all the scriptures by heart, ascetics who had spent decades in caves. Each had something to offer, but none felt like home. None sparked that recognition deep in my soul that said, "This is your spiritual family." Then one day, walking through the streets of Varanasi, I felt an irresistible pull. Something was drawing me forward like a magnet draws iron. I had no idea where I was going, but my feet seemed to know the way. I turned a corner and saw him, a man of medium height with the most penetrating, loving eyes I had ever encountered. The moment our gazes met, the whole world seemed to disappear. In those eyes, I saw infinite wisdom, boundless compassion, and something else, the unmistakable recognition of a soul who had been waiting for me. "Mukunda," he said, using my childhood name though we had never met, "you have come at last. I have been waiting for you for many years." This was Sri Yukteswar, the guru my soul had been seeking through lifetime after lifetime. In his presence, all my questions dissolved into a profound knowing. I didn't need to explain my spiritual hunger. He already understood everything about my past, my struggles, my destiny. "I know why you've come," he continued with a gentle smile. "You want to know the truth about God, about consciousness, about your own divine nature. These things cannot be learned from books alone. They must be lived, experienced, become." Over the next 10 years, he trained me in the ancient science of God realization. He showed me that every Fremzit 904, breath is a prayer, every heartbeat a divine vibration, every thought a creative force in the cosmic dance. Under his guidance, I learned to navigate states of consciousness that most people consider impossible: samadhi, cosmic consciousness, direct communion with the infinite. But perhaps the most important lesson he taught me was that these experiences weren't meant for cave-dwelling hermits alone. They were humanity's birthright, available to anyone willing to apply the proper techniques with sincere devotion. "The West is high in material attainments," he told me one day, "but lacking in spiritual understanding. It is God's will that you play a role in teaching mankind the value of balancing the material with an inner, spiritual life." Little did I know that this seemingly simple statement would reshape the course of my entire existence and eventually touch millions of lives around the world. My third transformative story takes us beyond India's shores to my early years in America. I had come to the West with a sacred mission, quote, to show that the ancient science of yoga was not primitive superstition, but the most advanced technology for human development ever discovered. But how do you convince materialistic minds that consciousness is more fundamental than matter? How do you prove to skeptical scientists that divine power is more real than physical force? The answer came through meeting remarkable souls who had mastered these spiritual sciences to an extraordinary degree. I remember visiting a saint who had the divine gift of healing. People would come to him crippled, diseased, hopeless, and within moments they would walk away completely whole. I watched a paralyzed man, carried in on a stretcher, rise and walk after the saint simply touched his forehead and said, "In God's name, be healed." I witnessed a woman, blind from birth, suddenly able to see clearly after receiving his blessing. My scientific mind was stunned. How was this possible? Was it suggestion, coincidence, some kind of trickery? Then I met another remarkable being, a saint who could materialize fragrances from thin air. He would sit quietly in meditation, and suddenly the room would fill with the scent of roses, jasmine, or sandalwood. These weren't imaginary fragrances. They were so real you could smell them from across the room. One day, eager to understand, I asked him directly, "Master, how do you create these fragrances? What is the secret?" He smiled knowingly. "There is no secret, my child. All matter is simply condensed thought energy. What you call solid reality is nothing but vibrations slowed down enough for your senses to perceive. When the mind is perfectly concentrated and aligned with divine will, it can reshape the very atoms of creation." "But that's impossible," I protested, my rational mind rebelling. "Matter can't just appear from nowhere." "Can it not?" he asked gently. "Tell me, where does your thought come from? Where does your next breath originate? Where does the love in your heart arise? The same infinite intelligence that beats your heart and grows your hair can certainly manifest a simple fragrance. To demonstrate, he closed his eyes for a moment. Instantly, the most exquisite rose fragrance filled the air around us. Then jasmine, then sandalwood. Each scent was distinct, pure, absolutely real. You see, he explained, what you call miraculous is simply natural law operating at a level most people don't understand. The mistake is thinking that the physical world is primary and consciousness is secondary. The truth is exactly the opposite. Consciousness is the only reality, and matter is simply one of its countless expressions. This revelation shattered my limited thinking forever. I began to understand that the entire universe is mental in nature, that thoughts are creative forces, that consciousness itself is the fundamental substance from which all experiences arise. These weren't just philosophical concepts. They were practical truths that completely changed how I approached life. Instead of feeling like a victim of circumstances, I realized I was a co-creator with the divine. Instead of begging God for help from outside, I learned to access the infinite power that already dwelled within. Now, beloved friend, these weren't just amazing experiences. They revealed scientific principles that govern all existence, principles you can apply to transform your own life starting tonight. The first universal law I want to share with you is this: consciousness is the only reality. Everything else, your body, your thoughts, your circumstances, even this physical world, is simply consciousness appearing in different forms. Think about your dreams for a moment. In your dreams last night, you experienced a whole world: people, places, conversations, emotions. While you were dreaming, that dream world felt completely real. You could see, hear, touch, even smell and taste. But when you woke up, where did that entire world go? It dissolved back into the consciousness that created it. The ancient masters discovered that what we call waking reality operates on exactly the same principle. This physical world is like a vast, shared dream taking place in the infinite mind of God. You are not a separate being trapped in a hostile universe. You are that infinite consciousness itself, temporarily playing the role of an individual person. This isn't just mystical poetry, it's the foundation of practical spirituality. When you truly understand that consciousness creates all experiences, you stop being a victim and become a conscious participant in your own destiny. Why do prayer and visualization work? Because focused consciousness has the power to reshape the energy patterns that manifest as your circumstances. Why did those saints I mentioned perform such miracles? Because they had trained their consciousness to operate from its unlimited nature rather than its apparently limited human appearance. The ancient yogis understood what quantum physics is now discovering: that the observer and the observed are one, that matter is just energy in motion, that consciousness itself is the field in which all possibilities exist. But here's what's most important for your daily life. You don't need to become a great saint to work with these principles. Every time you choose love over fear, you're accessing your unlimited nature. Every time you visualize your highest good with faith and devotion, you're collaborating with the creative force of the universe. Every time you meditate and touch that place of peace within, you're remembering who you really are. The practical application is this: start seeing yourself as consciousness, having a human experience rather than a human having occasional spiritual experiences. When challenges arise, instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "How can I use this experience to grow in wisdom and compassion?" When you want something, instead of straining and worrying, align your personal will with divine will and trust that what serves your highest good is already on its way. The second universal law flows naturally from the first: the guru principle, finding your spiritual family. Just as consciousness appears as countless forms in the physical world, divine love expresses itself through human instruments specifically designed to guide other souls home. Now, when I speak of guru, I don't mean you must find an Indian swami in robes sitting on a mountain. The guru principle is much more universal than that. A guru is simply consciousness in human form, appearing exactly when and how a seeking soul needs guidance. Your guru might be a Christian mystic, a Sufi master, a Buddhist teacher, or even someone who doesn't use spiritual language at all but embodies profound wisdom and love. The form doesn't matter. What matters is the divine transmission that occurs when a realized soul meets a ready student. But here's the beautiful secret: there's a divine magnetism that operates in this process. When your spiritual hunger becomes sincere enough, when your desire for truth overshadows all other desires, You become like a magnet that automatically draws the perfect guidance into your life. I searched desperately for years before meeting my guru, Sri Yukteswar. Sometimes I wondered if I would ever find the right teacher. But looking back, I can see that every experience, even the seemingly wrong turns, was preparing me to recognize and receive his guidance when the time was right. The same divine intelligence that beats your heart and rotates the planets is orchestrating your spiritual unfoldment. Trust this process. The right guidance always appears exactly when you're ready to receive it. But what if you haven't found your external guru yet? Here's something beautiful. The guru principle operates internally as well. There's a voice of infinite wisdom speaking within you right now. Some call it intuition, others call it the Holy Spirit, still others call it your higher self. This inner guru is always available, always loving, always guiding you toward your highest good. How do you recognize true spiritual guidance, whether external or internal? Authentic spiritual teaching always increases your peace, expands your love, and helps you serve others more effectively. False teaching creates fear, separation, and ego inflation. True guidance empowers you to become your own master. False guidance creates dependency and limitation. The practical application here is to cultivate your inner listening. Spend time in quiet meditation daily. Before making important decisions, sit in silence and feel for the response that brings the deepest peace. Trust that gentle inner voice more than the noisy chatter of fear and desire. And remain open to learning from everyone you meet. Sometimes the most profound teachings come through a child's innocent question, a stranger's random comment, or a difficult person who shows you exactly what you need to heal within yourself. Remember, the external guru appears to awaken the internal guru. The goal is not perpetual dependence, but graduated independence, learning to walk confidently in your own divine nature while remaining humbly grateful for all the hands that help lift you up. The third universal law I want to share is what I call the airplane route to God, the practice of Kriya Yoga. If consciousness is the ultimate reality, and if divine guidance is always available, then there must be practical techniques to accelerate your spiritual evolution. This is exactly what Kriya Yoga provides. Imagine you want to travel from New York to Los Angeles. You could walk, which would take months. You could drive, which would take days. Or you could fly, which takes hours. Kriya Yoga is like taking an airplane to divine realization instead of walking the long, slow path of ordinary spiritual evolution. But what exactly is Kriya Yoga? In simple terms, it's a scientific technique for harmonizing breath, energy, and consciousness to rapidly purify the nervous system and awaken your dormant spiritual faculties. Your spine is like a telephone line connecting earth consciousness with cosmic consciousness. Along this spine are centers of spiritual energy, chakras, that correspond to different levels of awareness. Through specific breathing techniques, visualization, and mental concentration, Kriya Yoga activates these centers in a systematic way. The beauty of this practice is that it works regardless of your religious background. Whether you're Christian, Hindu, Muslim, Jewish, or haven't found your path yet, Kriya Yoga simply accelerates whatever spiritual tradition speaks to your heart. It's like adding rocket fuel to your existing spiritual practice. Why is breath so important? Because breath is the link between mind and body, between finite and infinite. When you breathe unconsciously, you're at the mercy of every planks, passing thought and emotion. But when you breathe consciously with proper technique, you can actually direct your life force and consciousness wherever you choose. In ordinary breathing, you might take 12 to 16 breaths per minute. Your heart beats 60 to 80 times per minute. This creates a certain vibrational frequency in your nervous system that keeps you locked in ordinary awareness. But through Kriya Yoga breathing, you slow down these rhythms dramatically. Your breath becomes so refined that you might take only 2 or 3 breaths per minute. Your heart rate drops to 40 or 50 beats per minute. This creates a completely different vibrational frequency, one that naturally leads to expanded states of consciousness. The ancient masters discovered that every breath you take represents a specific amount of spiritual evolution. In normal circumstances, it would take many lifetimes to accumulate enough conscious breaths to achieve full realization. But through Kriya Yoga, you can compress that same amount of evolution into a single lifetime, or even a few years of dedicated practice. Now, I want to be clear, this isn't a magic pill that requires no effort. Like learning to play a musical instrument or master any skill, Kriya Yoga requires patience, consistency, and proper instruction. but the rewards are beyond anything the material world can offer. Students often report that within weeks of beginning practice, they experience deeper peace, clearer thinking, better health, and a growing sense of connection with something infinitely loving and wise. Within months, many begin having direct experiences of expanded consciousness, ABS, moments when the boundaries of the separate self dissolve and they taste their true nature as unlimited awareness. The practical application for you tonight is this. Even if you can't learn the full Kriya Yoga technique immediately, you can begin working with conscious breathing right now. Simply spending 10 minutes a day, watching your breath, not forcing it, just observing it with loving attention, will begin to transform your nervous system and awaken your dormant spiritual faculties. Understanding illuminates the mind, but transformation requires action. Here's how to begin your journey tonight with 3 practices you can start immediately. The first practice I want to teach you is the sacred AUM technique. AUM, sometimes spelled Om, is not just a religious word. It's the cosmic vibration, the sound current that creates and sustains all existence. By learning to listen for this inner sound, you can attune yourself to the fundamental frequency of creation itself. Here's how to begin. Find a quiet place where you won't be disturbed. Sit comfortably with your spine straight but not rigid. Close your eyes and take 3 deep breaths to settle your mind. Now, gently close your ears with your thumbs and place your other fingers lightly over your closed eyes. Don't press hard, just enough to create a gentle darkness and silence. Begin to listen carefully inside your head. At first, you might hear nothing but silence. That's perfectly normal. Keep listening with patient attention. Soon you may notice subtle sounds, perhaps a high-pitched ringing, a humming, or something like distant ocean waves. These are the beginning vibrations of the cosmic sound. With practice, this inner sound becomes clearer and more pronounced. Some hear it like a flute, others like bells, still others like the roar of a great waterfall. Whatever you hear, listen to it with complete absorption. This is the voice of God speaking directly to your soul. The beautiful thing about this practice is that you can do it anywhere, anytime. You don't need special equipment or perfect conditions. The cosmic sound is always present. You're simply learning to tune in to a frequency that's been broadcasting within you since the moment you were born. Start with just 5 minutes daily. As you become more comfortable with the technique, gradually increase the time. Don't worry if your mind wanders. Simply bring your attention back to listening. This is meditation in its purest form, not concentration, but gentle, loving attention to the divine presence within. The second practice I want to share is my system of energization exercises, a way to charge your life battery and gain conscious control over the energy that animates your body. Most people live their entire lives without realizing that they have a second body made of pure energy that interpenetrates their physical form. This energy body is what the Chinese call qi, what yogis call prana, what Christians sometimes call the Holy Spirit within. When this energy flows freely, you experience vibrant health, mental clarity, and emotional stability. When it becomes blocked or depleted, you feel tired, confused, and emotionally reactive. The energization exercises I develop work on a simple principle. Energy follows will and concentration. By tensing and relaxing specific muscle groups while visualizing energy flowing through them, you can learn to direct this life force wherever it's needed. Let me teach you a basic exercise you can do right now. Extend your right arm in front of you, parallel to the floor. Make a fist and tense your entire arm as strongly as you can. While tensing, visualize energy flowing from your heart, down your arm, and shooting out through your fist like a beam of light. Hold this tension for about 6 seconds, feeling the energy flowing strongly through your arm. Then suddenly relax completely, dropping your arm to your side. As you relax, feel the energy distributing evenly throughout your arm and hand. Notice the tingling sensation? That's the feeling of energy moving consciously through your body instead of randomly. With practice, you can learn to direct this energy to heal any part of your body that needs attention, or to send it out as healing vibration to others. The complete energization system involves exercises for every part of your body, arms, legs, spine, organs, even your brain. Practice daily. These exercises can eliminate fatigue, improve your health dramatically, and give you a sense of energy and vitality that most people lose in childhood. But the real purpose goes deeper than physical health. These exercises teach you that you are not at the mercy of your body's random energy fluctuations. You can learn to be the conscious director of your own life force, which is the first step toward mastering consciousness itself. The third practice I want to give you is perhaps the most important, a meditation technique for magnetizing your highest good. This isn't about manipulating the universe to give you what your ego wants. It's about aligning your personal will with divine will so that what serves your soul's growth flows into your life naturally. Here's how it works. Sit quietly and bring to mind something you truly need, not just want, but genuinely need for your growth and service. It might be healing, guidance, a meaningful relationship, work that fulfills your purpose, or simply deeper peace and joy. Once you've identified this need, don't pray for it in the usual way of begging God to give you something you lack. Instead, recognize that everything you truly need already exists in the infinite storehouse of divine love. Your job is not to create it, but to become a magnet that draws it into manifestation. Begin by feeling deep gratitude, as if your need has already been fulfilled. Feel the joy and peace that would come with having this blessing in your life. Don't visualize specific details about how it should come. Instead, focus on the feeling of fulfillment itself. Then, from this place of grateful joy, offer your personal will to divine will. Say something like, "Divine love, I know you want my highest happiness even more than I do. I offer this desire to you. If fulfilling it serves my growth and the good of all, please bring it into my life in the perfect way and time. If something better serves my soul's evolution, I gladly accept that instead." This surrender isn't passive resignation. It's intelligent cooperation with the unlimited wisdom that knows your true needs better than your surface mind ever could. When you pray this way, you're not trying to force the universe to conform to your limited understanding. You're opening yourself to receive blessings that are far greater than anything you could imagine. Practice this meditation daily, always ending with gratitude for whatever comes. Sometimes your prayers will be answered in exactly the way you expected. Other times, they'll be answered in ways so much better than what you requested that you'll wonder why you ever worried about the details. The key is to combine earnest effort with complete surrender. Make your request known with faith and feeling, then release attachment to specific outcomes. Trust that divine love is always working for your highest good, even when appearances suggest otherwise. But let me share with you more deeply how these practices work together to create a complete system of spiritual development. You see, my dear friend, the spiritual path is not about escaping the world. It's about bringing heaven to earth through your own transformed consciousness. When I first arrived in America in 1920, I was amazed by the material progress of the West. Skyscrapers reaching toward the heavens, automobiles racing through streets, electric lights banishing darkness. Truly, Western civilization had mastered the art of manipulating matter. But I also noticed something troubling. Despite all this outer progress, many souls seemed lost, empty, searching for meaning in endless distractions. I remember giving a lecture in Boston to a crowd of very sophisticated people, doctors, lawyers, professors, businessmen. After I spoke about the science of meditation and God realization, a prominent physician approached me with tears in his eyes. "Mr. Yogananda," he said, "I have everything the American dream promises: wealth, status, a beautiful family, respect in my community. But I wake up every morning feeling like something essential is missing. I've achieved everything I thought I wanted, yet I feel more empty than when I was a struggling student. Can your teachings really help someone like me?" I looked into his sincere eyes and saw the hunger that lives in every human heart, the longing to know our true identity, our real purpose, our connection to something infinitely greater than our small personal concerns. "My friend," I told him, "your emptiness is not a problem to be solved. It's a divine invitation to be answered. That hollow feeling inside is your soul calling you home to your real self. You've mastered the art of having. Now it's time to learn the science of being." This conversation illustrates why I've spent my entire life bridging the gap between Eastern wisdom and Western practicality. The ancient techniques I learned in India are not meant for cave-dwelling hermits alone. They're designed to transform ordinary life into extraordinary service. Let me tell you about Dr. Scott Lewis, who became my first American Kriya Yoga student. He was a successful insurance executive in Boston, completely absorbed in the business world. When he first heard me speak, he was skeptical about meditation and Eastern philosophy. But something in his heart recognized truth, and he decided to learn the Kriya technique. Within months of beginning practice, Dr. Lewis experienced a complete transformation. His business actually became more successful, because he could think more clearly and make decisions from a place of inner wisdom rather than fear and greed. His relationships improved because he was no longer reactive and defensive. Most importantly, he discovered an unshakable peace and joy that no external circumstances could disturb. But here's what was most beautiful about Dr. Lewis. He didn't become otherworldly or detached from life. Instead, he became more present, more loving, more effective in everything he did. He continued running his business, caring for his family, and participating fully in society. But now he did it all from a completely different state of consciousness. This is what I call the householder path, remaining fully engaged in worldly responsibilities while maintaining constant communion with the divine. You don't have to choose between spiritual development and practical success. In fact, true spiritual practice makes you more effective in every area of life, because you're operating from your unlimited nature rather than your limited personality. The key is understanding that there are different levels of your being, and you can learn to operate from whichever level serves the situation best. Your surface mind handles daily details and practical decisions. Your heart center opens you to love and emotional intelligence. Your wisdom center connects you to intuitive guidance and creative solutions. And your soul center unites you with the infinite peace and power that is your true nature. Most people live their entire lives identified only with their surface thoughts and emotions. They think they are their worries, their desires, their opinions, their roles in society. But through proper spiritual practice, you learn to step back and recognize yourself as the consciousness that observes all these changing experiences. This shift in identity is not philosophical, it's intensely practical. When you know yourself as consciousness, rather than the contents of consciousness, you stop being at the mercy of every passing thought and feeling. You can choose which thoughts to entertain and which to release. You can respond to challenges from wisdom rather than react from fear. You can love more freely because you're not trying to protect a fragile ego. Now let me share with you some advanced techniques that can accelerate this process of awakening. The practices I mentioned earlier, AUM meditation, energization exercises, and magnetizing prayer, are just the beginning. As you develop consistency with these basics, you'll be ready for deeper methods. One powerful technique I call watching the watcher. Most meditation instruction tells you to watch your breath or concentrate on a mantra. These are excellent practices, but there's something even more direct. Instead of watching the breath, watch the one who is watching the breath. Instead of observing thoughts, observe the observer of thoughts. At first, this might seem confusing or impossible. How can you watch the watcher? But with gentle persistence, you'll begin to notice that there's a aware presence behind all your experiences, a silent witness that sees but is never disturbed by what it sees. This witnessing consciousness is your true self, the part of you that is one with God. The more you identify with this witnessing awareness, the more free you become from the drama of personality and circumstances. You realize that you are not the actor in the play of life. You are the eternal audience, watching with fascination and love as the cosmic drama unfolds. Another advanced practice involves learning to see divine qualities in everyone you meet. This isn't about naive positive thinking or denying people's human flaws. It's about training yourself to perceive the soul behind every personality, the Christ or Buddha nature that exists within every being. When someone is rude to you, instead of taking offense, silently bless them and recognize that their rudeness comes from pain and confusion, not from their essential nature. When someone is kind to you, see their kindness as a reflection of the divine love that flows through all life. When someone is struggling, send them mental energy and see them as already healed and whole at the soul level. This practice transforms not only how you see others, but how others respond to you. When you consistently see the good in people, they begin to manifest more of their goodness in your presence. When you refuse to buy into others' negative self-concepts, you give them permission to express their higher nature. I remember a student who came to me very frustrated with her difficult mother-in-law. This woman seemed to criticize everything my student did, created constant family tension, and appeared to delight in making others miserable. Paramahansa, my student said, "I've tried being patient and kind, but nothing works. How can I possibly see the divine in someone so negative and mean-spirited?" I smiled and asked her, "Have you ever seen a beautiful diamond covered in mud? The mud is real, but it doesn't change the nature of the diamond underneath. Your mother-in-law's negativity is like that mud. It's real, it's unpleasant, but it's not who she really island." I taught her to practice a specific visualization. Whenever her mother-in-law was being difficult, my student would silently see her as a beautiful soul, temporarily forgetting her true nature. She would send love to the real person behind the personality, while maintaining appropriate boundaries with the surface behavior. Within weeks, something miraculous began to happen. The mother-in-law started softening. She began asking my student for advice, expressing appreciation for small kindnesses, and even apologizing for past harshness. The negative patterns that had persisted for years dissolved as my student consistently related to the soul rather than the personality. This wasn't magic, it was applied spiritual science. When you see divinity in others, you awaken their awareness of their own divine nature. When you refuse to reinforce their negative self-concepts, you free them to express their highest qualities. But perhaps the most important advanced practice is what I call living in the eternal now. Most people spend their mental energy regretting the past or worrying about the future, completely missing the only moment where life actually happens, the present. The past exists only as memory. The future exists only as imagination. But God exists only in the now. Divine love is available only now. Peace is possible only now. Joy can be experienced only now. When you learn to anchor your attention in the present moment, you discover that every instant is a doorway to the infinite. This doesn't mean ignoring practical planning or learning from past experience. It means doing whatever needs to be done from a state of present moment awareness rather than anxious projection or regretful brooding. When you're washing dishes, be fully present with washing dishes. Feel the warm water on your hands. Notice the texture of the soap. Appreciate the simple service you're providing. When you're walking, feel your feet touching the earth. Notice the rhythm of your breathing. Let each step be a prayer of gratitude. When you're listening to someone speak, give them your complete attention rather than thinking about what you'll say next. When you're working, focus totally on the task at hand rather than counting the hours until quitting time. This quality of presence transforms ordinary activities into spiritual practice. You begin to find God not only in formal meditation, but in every moment of daily life. You realize that enlightenment isn't something you achieve in the future. It's something you can taste right now, in whatever you're doing. But let me share with you one of the most profound experiences of my life, something that illustrates how all these practices culminate in direct God realization. It happened during my early years in America, when I had been practicing intensively for many years but still felt like I was seeking something just beyond my reach. I had been meditating for hours in my room at the Mount Washington headquarters, using all the techniques my guru had taught me. My body was perfectly still. My breath had become so refined it was barely perceptible. And my mind had settled into a deep state of inner silence. Suddenly, without warning, the walls of the room began to dissolve. Not metaphorically, I could literally see through them as if they were made of transparent light. The boundaries of my body started to fade, and I felt myself expanding beyond all physical limitations. Then something extraordinary happened. I began to perceive the entire universe as made of the same luminous consciousness that I was experiencing within myself. Every star, every planet, every blade of grass, every human being, all of it was revealed as different expressions of one infinite, joyful, loving awareness. I could feel the heartbeat of every creature, share the consciousness of every saint and sage who had ever lived, participate in the cosmic intelligence that guides the movement of galaxies. Yet at the same time, I remained perfectly individual, watching this supreme vision with wonder and gratitude. In that state, every question I had ever asked about the meaning of existence was answered without words. I knew beyond all doubt that love is the fundamental force of creation, that consciousness is the only reality, that death is merely a change of costume for the eternal soul. Most importantly, I realized that this state of cosmic consciousness isn't a special gift reserved for a few mystics. It's the natural birthright of every human being. We are all individual expressions of the same infinite consciousness, temporarily playing at being separate so we can experience the joy of reunion. This vision lasted for several hours in clock time, though in that state time had no meaning. When I gradually returned to ordinary awareness, I found myself crying tears of gratitude and wonder. Everything looked the same, yet everything was completely transformed. I could never again doubt the reality of God or my own divine nature. But here's what was most beautiful about this experience. It wasn't just a personal spiritual high. It filled me with overwhelming compassion for all beings who don't yet know their true nature. I understood with crystal clarity why I had been sent to the West, to share the science of God, realization with souls who were ready to remember who they really are. This is why I've written my autobiography, established centers for spiritual learning, and trained disciples to continue this work. Not to create another religion or spiritual organization, but to remind humanity of the divine consciousness that we all share. Every technique I teach, every story I share, every blessing I offer, is designed to help you recognize the same infinite awareness that I discovered in that sacred moment. You don't have to wait for some future lifetime or depend on anyone else's spiritual realization. The kingdom of heaven exists within you right now, waiting to be discovered through sincere practice and divine grace. Now, my beloved friend, let me give you some specific guidance about how to develop these practices in your daily life. The key is not to try to do everything at once, but to build a sustainable routine that grows naturally over time. Start each morning with at least 15 minutes of meditation. It doesn't matter which technique you use, AUM meditation, watching the breath, or simply sitting and loving attention to the divine presence within. What matters is consistency. Better to meditate for 15 minutes every day than to meditate for 2 hours once a week. During your morning meditation, set an intention for the day. Not a rigid plan that creates pressure, but a gentle dedication of your activities to the highest good. You might say something like, Divine Love, may everything I do today serve the awakening of compassion in myself and others. May I be an instrument of peace in whatever situations arise. Throughout the day, practice what I call micro-meditations. When you're waiting in line, instead of getting impatient, take a few conscious breaths and feel gratitude for the Rade, gift of life. When you're walking from one place to another, notice your connection to the earth and sky. When you're eating, appreciate the plants and animals that gave their life energy to nourish your body. Before important conversations or meetings, take a moment to center yourself in love and wisdom. Silently ask for guidance about how to serve the highest good of everyone involved. This simple practice can transform potentially difficult situations into opportunities for healing and understanding. In the evening, spend a few minutes reviewing your day with compassion rather than judgment. Notice moments when you acted from love and wisdom, and appreciate yourself for those choices. Notice moments when you acted from fear or ego, and forgive yourself while learning from the experience. End each day with gratitude meditation. Recall 3 specific things that happened during the day that you can genuinely appreciate, perhaps a beautiful sunset, a kind gesture from a stranger, or simply the fact that your heart kept beating without any effort on your part. As you develop consistency with these basic practices, you'll begin to notice subtle but profound changes in your consciousness. You'll find yourself less reactive to stress, more intuitive in your decision-making, and more naturally loving in your relationships. But remember, the goal is not to have peak spiritual experiences, though these may come. The goal is to embody divine qualities, love, peace, joy, wisdom, compassion, in your ordinary human interactions. The mark of true spiritual development is not how long you can meditate or how many mystical visions you have, but how kindly you treat the person who serves your coffee and how patiently you respond when someone cuts you off in traffic. Let me share with you a story that illustrates this beautifully. One of my advanced students was very proud of his meditation experiences. He could sit for hours in deep absorption, had visions of saints and angels, and could recite scriptures from memory. But he had a terrible temper with his family and was often critical and impatient with people he considered less spiritual than himself. One day I gave him a special assignment. For 1 month, he was to treat every person he met, family members, co-workers, store clerks, everyone, as if they were Christ or Buddha in disguise. He was not allowed to tell anyone about this practice or draw attention to his spiritual efforts. He simply had to serve and love without any recognition or reward. At first, he resisted this assignment. He wanted to continue his advanced meditation practices and study sacred texts. Dealing lovingly with difficult people seemed like a step backward in his spiritual development. But I insisted, and reluctantly he agreed to try. Within days, his whole perspective began to shift. He realized that his meditation experiences had been feeding his spiritual ego rather than developing genuine compassion. He discovered that treating difficult people with patience and kindness required far more spiritual strength than sitting in blissful states of consciousness. By the end of the month, he had undergone a complete transformation. His family relationships healed, his co-workers began seeking his advice, and complete strangers seemed drawn to his peaceful presence. Most importantly, He realized that every human interaction is an opportunity to practice divine love. Master, he told me with tears in his eyes, I thought I was advanced because I could meditate for hours. Now I understand that the real test of spirituality is how we treat each other. My meditation was just preparation for learning to love. This is the essence of the spiritual path, using your connection with the divine to serve the awakening of love in the world. It's not enough to feel peaceful in meditation if you're still judgmental and impatient in daily life. True spiritual realization expresses itself as practical compassion. Now, let me address something that many sincere seekers struggle with: the relationship between spiritual practice and material success. There's a common misconception that being spiritual means being poor, that caring about money or achievement is somehow unspiritual. This is a misunderstanding that has caused much suffering and confusion. Divine consciousness is infinite abundance, not just spiritual abundance, but abundance in every form that serves the good of all. The universe is overflowing with beauty, creativity, resources, and opportunities. Why would God want you to live in limitation and poverty? The key is not to reject material success, but to understand its proper relationship to spiritual development. Money, achievement, and possessions are not inherently good or bad. They're simply forms of energy that can be used to serve love or to feed ego. When you pursue material goals from fear, greed, or the need to prove your worth, these activities become obstacles to spiritual growth. But when you approach success as an opportunity to serve others and express your divine creativity, material achievement becomes part of your spiritual practice. I've known many students who became very successful in business while maintaining deep spiritual practice. They use their wealth to support charitable causes, their influence to promote justice and compassion, and their skills to create opportunities for others to grow and serve. I've also known people who gave up all material possessions in the name of spirituality, but remained selfish, judgmental, and spiritually immature. Poverty doesn't automatically create virtue any more than wealth automatically creates corruption. The real question is not how much you have, but how you relate to what you have. Can you enjoy material blessings without becoming attached to them? Can you work for success without becoming enslaved by ambition? Can you use your resources to uplift others rather than just gratify your own desires? When you approach material life from this perspective, everything becomes an opportunity for spiritual growth. Your job becomes a place to practice patience, creativity, and service. Your financial decisions become exercises in wisdom and generosity. Your possessions become tools for creating beauty and comfort for yourself and others. This balanced approach is especially important for those of you living in modern society. You don't have to choose between being spiritual and being successful. You can excel in your career while maintaining daily meditation practice. You can enjoy material pleasures while remembering their temporary nature. You can accumulate wealth while using it to serve the common good. But let me share with you a deeper secret about manifestation and abundance. Most people try to create success through effort, struggle, and manipulation. They work harder, scheme more cleverly, and push against obstacles with increasing force. Sometimes this approach produces temporary results, but it always comes at a great cost in stress, relationships, and inner peace. There's a much more effective way, the way of divine magnetism. When you align your personal will with divine will, when you seek first the kingdom of heaven within, when you approach your goals from love rather than fear, you become a magnet that naturally attracts whatever serves your highest good. This isn't wishful thinking or passive waiting for miracles. It's active cooperation with the infinite intelligence that orchestrates all of creation. You still need to take appropriate action, develop necessary skills, and work diligently toward your goals. But you do it all from a state of inner peace and trust rather than anxiety and strain. The difference is profound. When you operate from divine magnetism, opportunities appear synchronistically, the right people come into your life at the perfect time, obstacles dissolve in unexpected ways, and you find yourself flowing toward your goals rather than struggling against resistance. I remember a student who wanted to start a business to serve underprivileged children, but had no money, no business experience, and no connections in the field. Instead of becoming discouraged, she decided to apply the principles of divine magnetism. Every morning she would meditate and visualize her future organization serving children with love and excellence. But instead of focusing on her limitations, she concentrated on the feeling of fulfillment that would come from successful service. She offered her vision to divine will, asking that it manifest only if it truly served the highest good. Then she took practical action, researching successful programs, volunteering with existing organizations, developing her skills through classes and workshops. But she did it all from a state of joyful anticipation rather than desperate striving. Within 2 years, everything she needed had appeared in her life. A wealthy philanthropist heard about her vision and offered funding. Experienced nonprofit leaders volunteered to serve on her board. The perfect building became available at below-market rent. Most importantly, she attracted a team of dedicated staff members who shared her passion for serving children. Today, her organization serves hundreds of children annually and has become a model for similar programs around the world. But what's most beautiful is that the whole process felt effortless and joyful rather than stressful and difficult. This is how divine intelligence works when we cooperate with it rather than trying to force our limited ideas about how things should happen. The universe is far more creative and abundant than our personal minds could ever imagine. So dream big, my friend. Ask for what would truly serve your soul's growth and the welfare of others. Then release attachment to specific outcomes while taking inspired action toward your vision. Trust that divine love wants your success even more than you do, and is constantly arranging circumstances to support your highest good. But remember that the ultimate success is not what you achieve in the world, but who you become in the process of achievement. Every goal you pursue, every challenge you face, every relationship you engage in is an opportunity to express more of your divine nature. The autobiography I've shared with you tonight is really the story of every soul's journey from unconsciousness to consciousness, from separation to unity, from human limitation to divine realization. You are writing your own spiritual autobiography through every choice you make, every thought you think, every act of love you offer. Make it a beautiful story. Fill it with chapters of courage, compassion, wisdom, and service. Include scenes of triumph and failure, joy and sorrow, certainty and doubt, for these are all essential elements in the sacred drama of awakening. But never forget that you are not just the main character in this story, you are also its author, director, and ultimate audience. You have the power to rewrite any chapter that doesn't serve your highest good. You can choose how your story unfolds from this moment forward. Will you choose the path of love or the path of fear? Will you seek to serve or to be served? Will you see others as separate beings to compete with, or as fellow souls on the journey home to God? Will you pursue temporary pleasures or lasting joy? Will you react from personality or respond from soul wisdom? These choices are available to you in every moment. They are not determined by your past, your circumstances, or other people's behavior. They arise from the freedom of consciousness itself, the divine spark within you that can never be diminished or destroyed. In my final years before leaving this earthly form, I spent countless hours in deep communion with the divine, receiving guidance about how these ancient teachings could best serve humanity in the challenging times ahead. I saw that the world would face great difficulties, wars, natural disasters, economic upheavals, social conflicts, but also unprecedented opportunities for spiritual awakening. I saw that millions of souls would hunger for deeper meaning, authentic community, and practical wisdom for navigating an increasingly complex world. I saw that the barriers between different spiritual traditions would begin to dissolve as people recognize the universal truths that unite all paths to God. Most importantly, I saw that individual spiritual awakening would become the foundation for collective transformation. As more people learn to access the peace and wisdom of their true nature, they will naturally create more loving families, more conscious businesses, more compassionate communities, and more peaceful nations. This is why the work we do together is so important. Every moment you spend in meditation, every act of kindness you offer, every choice you make from love rather than fear contributes to the healing and awakening of our entire world. You are not just seeking personal enlightenment, you are participating in the collective evolution of human consciousness. Your individual journey home to God helps light the way for countless other souls who are still struggling in darkness and confusion. So take your spiritual practice seriously, but hold it lightly. Commit to daily meditation, but don't become rigid about forms and techniques. Study sacred teachings, but remember that the ultimate truth lives within your own heart. Seek guidance from qualified teachers, but trust your inner wisdom above all else. And most importantly, never lose sight of the joy and wonder that is your birthright as a child of the infinite. The spiritual path is not a grim duty or painful sacrifice. It's the most exhilarating adventure possible. You are discovering who you really are, why you exist, and how to live in harmony with the cosmic love that created and sustains all things. This is the message I want to leave with you as our time together draws to a close. You are already what you seek to become. You already possess what you hope to find. You are already loved beyond measure by the divine consciousness that beats your heart and breathes your breath. The autobiography of a yogi is really the autobiography of every awakening soul. The miracles I experienced are available to you. The peace I found lives within you. The love I discovered is your very essence. Trust this. Live this. Share this. And watch as your life becomes a living testament to the reality of God's presence in human form. Remember always, dear soul, you are not a drop trying to find the ocean. You are the ocean, playing at being a drop. The autobiography I've shared tonight isn't just my story. It's the story of every soul's journey from the illusion of separation back to the truth of oneness. Whether through miraculous visions, perfect masters, or simple daily peace, the same divine love that guided my life is orchestrating yours right now, in ways more perfect than your mind could ever imagine. Every challenge you face is designed to awaken more of your infinite nature. Every person you meet is a teacher sent to show you something about yourself. Every experience, pleasant and painful alike, is a note in the symphony of your spiritual evolution. The book that changed millions of lives is ultimately pointing to something that no book can contain, the living presence of God within your own heart. My autobiography was just a finger pointing at the moon. Don't get so fascinated by the finger that you miss the moon itself. Feel this truth vibrating in every cell. I am a child of the infinite. Divine love flows through me as peace. Divine wisdom guides me as intuition. Divine power expresses through me as service to all life. I am awake in God's dream, playing my part with joy, knowing that all experiences, pleasant and painful, are but passing scenes in the eternal movie of consciousness. I am that. I am free. I am one with the bliss. I am. Say this with me now, feeling each word resonate in your heart. I am a child of the infinite. Divine love flows through me as peace. Divine wisdom guides me as intuition. Divine power expresses through me as service to all life. I am awake in God's dream, playing my part with joy, knowing that all experiences are but passing scenes in the eternal movie of consciousness. I am that. I am free. I am one with the bliss I am. If these truths have awakened something deep within your soul, let me know by subscribing. Your support helps these timeless teachings reach other seeking hearts around the world. Give this message a thumbs up if it touched you, and please, share in the comments. What spoke to your heart most deeply? What miracle are you ready to invite into your life? Until we meet again in the one divine love that we both are, may you walk in light, recognize the God in all, and remember, you are never alone, for the beloved dwells within as your very self. In divine friendship always, Paramahansa Yogananda. Beloved soul, pause for a moment and reflect upon how you end most of your days. For many, the last words that pass through the mind before sleep are not sacred offerings to the divine, but restless repetitions of the day's worries, regrets, and unfinished duties. You lie down with a body weary from labor, and yet instead of peace you find a carousel of thoughts, anxieties about tomorrow, memories of what went wrong, conversations replaying endlessly, loneliness echoing in the silence. And thus you drift into sleep as if cast adrift upon a dark sea without compass or sail, tossed aimlessly by the winds of the subconscious. What if I told you that these last thoughts are not trivial, that they do not dissolve when the body rests, but that they are seeds planted in the garden of your soul each night? What if I told you that the state in which you enter sleep is the very state that greets you upon awakening, and beyond that, the state that prepares you for the greater sleep we call death? Yogananda taught that each night is a miniature rehearsal for that final transition. As the body relaxes, as consciousness withdraws from the senses, the soul enters the inner realms. And just as the departing soul at death is carried forward by the momentum of its last thought, so too the soul in nightly rest travels according to the vibration you set before surrendering to slumber. If you whisper fear, you drift into fearful dreams. If you whisper love, you drift into light. If you whisper nothing, you drift unconsciously, wasting the holy opportunity of the night. How solemn and how wondrous is this truth! Each evening you hold in your heart the power to decide the doorway through which your soul shall enter the astral world. Think of it as setting the sails before your vessel drifts into the sea of night. The sailor who forgets to set his sails is carried wherever the wind blows, perhaps into storm, perhaps upon rocks. But the wise sailor, even in darkness, arranges his sails toward the desired horizon, and the invisible winds carry him safely toward dawn. So too, beloved one, must you set the sails of your soul before drifting into sleep, aligning them with the breath of spirit by whispering sacred words to the divine. These words become your compass and your anchor, guiding you through the unknown waters of the subconscious and delivering you safely into the harbor of peace. Therefore, I summon you to awaken to the holiness of your last words each day. Do not allow them to be squandered on trivialities or worries. Recognize them as the golden key to inner freedom, the whispered prayer that can turn the ordinary act of sleep into a nightly communion with God. Tonight, before you rest, instead of allowing your mind to scatter in restlessness, whisper to your eternal friend words of gratitude, confession, surrender, identity, and invitation. In these 5 whispers lies a ladder of light upon which your soul may ascend each night, transforming unconscious sleep into superconscious union. Let us now prepare together for this sacred discipline. Beloved one, understand that sleep is not mere absence, not a void of nothingness in which the mind ceases and the body drifts into mechanical rest. Sleep is a journey, a nightly pilgrimage of the soul, a transition from the gross vibrations of the body into the subtle currents of the subconscious and, if rightly guided, into the superconscious communion with God. Too many live as though night were an unconscious interruption of life, a kind of blank intermission between the activities of today and the worries of tomorrow. Yet the truth is that in sleep you are not idle, you are traveling. The soul withdraws its life force from the senses, leaving the eyes unseeing, the ears unhearing, the tongue unspeaking, the skin unfeeling. Freed from the body's cage, it moves inward, descending into the caverns of memory or ascending toward the luminous chambers of spirit, depending upon the direction you have set before the journey begins. Yogananda revealed that the state in which you fall asleep is the state in which you awaken. These words are both a comfort and a warning. If you carry restlessness into the night, you awaken weary. If you carry anger, you awaken heavy. If you carry peace, you awaken light. The law of spiritual action is exact. What you sow as your last thought becomes the seed that blossoms in dreams and bears fruit in your consciousness upon waking. Consider the mind as a fertile field into which seeds are planted each night. If seeds of worry are sown, weeds of anxiety sprout by morning. If seeds of devotion are sown, blossoms of joy greet you with the sunrise. Just as the farmer does not neglect what seed he casts into the soil, so too the wise seeker does not neglect the last impressions sown into the subconscious before rest. This law should awaken both urgency and hope within you. Urgency, because you realize how precious is each evening, how tragic to waste it with idle thoughts or resentments, when those very thoughts will shape the landscape of your inner world through the night. Hope, because you recognize that no matter how restless the day has been, the night can be sanctified in a single moment of prayer. Even if you have stumbled, even if you have faltered, the last words whispered with sincerity can reset the course of your journey, turning the ship of your soul toward divine shores. Therefore, see sleep not as an unconscious collapse, but as an opportunity for worship. As the body sinks into stillness, let the soul rise into remembrance. As the world fades from your senses, let God come closer in the silence. Each night you hold the power to shape your voyage, to determine whether your dreams will be tangled shadows or luminous encounters with spirit. Whisper to God, and the whisper becomes the rope that ties your drifting boat to his eternal anchor. Neglect the whisper, and you are cast adrift upon winds you cannot control. Beloved soul, plant well the seeds of your night, and they will blossom not only in dreams but in your waking life. For the subconscious, once charged with devotion, becomes a silent ally, repeating the whispers you have given it, nourishing your soul even while the body sleeps. And more than this, when you sleep with God in your heart, the astral doors open, and you find yourself walking not through nightmares of your own making but through gardens of light, guided by the divine presence himself. Such is the law of spiritual action that as you whisper, so shall you journey, and as you journey, so shall you awaken. Beloved one, The first whisper that should rise from your heart before surrendering to the arms of sleep is the whisper of gratitude. Say softly, with feeling, "Thank you, Father, for every breath and every moment of this day." At first, these words may seem simple, almost too simple for the weight of eternity, yet within them lies a great secret. Gratitude purifies memory. When the mind prepares to sleep, it often replays the events of the day, lingering on frustrations, disappointments, or what was left undone. These impressions, if carried into slumber, sink like stones into the subconscious, where they ferment into anxiety, regret, and heaviness. But gratitude transforms the substance of memory. It gathers the fragments of the day, whether bright or dark, and lays them like flowers at the feet of the divine. Gratitude is the alchemy that turns even mistakes into offerings, even sorrows into opportunities for deeper trust. When you whisper thanks for every breath and every moment, you are not denying that pain or failure may have occurred. You are lifting them into a higher vision. You are saying, "Lord, even in the storm, thy presence was the hidden sun. Even in my weakness, thy strength sustained me. Even in what I did not understand, thy wisdom was weaving a greater design." In this way, gratitude prevents the mind from sinking into bitterness and instead plants seeds of trust for tomorrow. It is like taking all the scattered pages of the day and binding them into a book inscribed with the single title, "God was with me." And when that book is placed on the altar of the heart before sleep, the subconscious reads it through the night and awakens you with peace at dawn. Picture this act in your imagination. You hold the whole day in your hands, the laughter and the tears, the duties fulfilled and those neglected, the victories and the failures, and you walk to God's altar within. One by one you place them there saying, "Thank you, Father, for this. Thank you, Father, for that. Thank you for all, for without thee, none of it could be." Like a devotee scattering blossoms before the image of the beloved, you lay each memory down until your hands are empty and your heart is light. Then, instead of falling asleep with clenched fists around regret, you fall asleep with open hands, free, at rest in God's embrace. Gratitude is not merely courtesy, it is soul, remembrance. It shifts your identity from a complaining ego to a trusting child. And when a child says thank you to the parent bends nearer, eager to give more. Gratitude magnetizes future blessings by aligning your vibration with abundance. And so the first whisper, "Beloved soul," is the key that unlocks the treasure house of peace. Whisper it sincerely, whisper it tenderly, whisper it until you feel the heart soften and the mind grow quiet. Then, with Thanksgiving as your first sail, you are ready to set out upon the sea of night with God as your companion. Beloved seeker, once you have offered gratitude for the day just lived, the second whisper must rise like incense from the altar of your heart. "Forgive me, Lord, for my mistakes. I lay them at thy feet." Gratitude gathers the blossoms, but confession gathers the stones, and both must be placed before the beloved. For what weighs most heavily upon the soul as it enters sleep is not only the memory of blessings, but the memory of errors, words spoken too harshly, opportunities neglected, temptations yielded to, thoughts entertained that clouded the mirror of the mind. These, if carried into the night, settle in the subconscious like seeds, and by the law of karma, they sprout as restless dreams and awaken as renewed tendencies in the morning. But when you whisper this prayer of confession, you prevent those seeds from taking root. You offer them into the consuming fire of divine forgiveness, where they are dissolved before they can germinate. Picture yourself as a traveler who has been collecting heavy stones throughout the day. Some stones are large, an outburst of anger, a lapse into selfishness. Others are small moments of impatience, a careless word. But whether large or small, carried together they weigh down the traveler until each step is a burden. Imagine then that at the close of day you come upon a river, broad and shimmering in the moonlight, and upon its bank stands the Lord himself, his hands outstretched. One by one, you take the stones from your pack and place them into his palms. He casts them into the river of his mercy, where they sink without a ripple, lost forever. With each stone released, your shoulders grow lighter, your breath deeper, your step freer. By the time you lay your head upon the pillow, your pack is empty, and you rest not as a guilty wanderer, but as a child cradled in divine compassion. Do not fear to confess. God is not a judge eager to condemn, but a loving parent eager to cleanse. He already knows your mistakes. Your whisper is not to inform him, but to release yourself from the bondage of hiding. To say, "Forgive me," with sincerity, is to open the door of the heart, allowing his light to shine into the hidden corners where shadows once dwelt. And when you add, "I lay them at thy feet," you are not excusing yourself nor clinging to shame. You are surrendering the burden to the only one who can truly dissolve it. In that surrender lies freedom. For confession without release is still bondage, but confession with surrender is liberation. Beloved one, speak this whisper each night, not as a ritual of guilt, but as a sacrament of cleansing. Even saints whisper it, for in the presence of the infinite, even their smallest lapses are felt as veils. Whisper it with humility. Whisper it with trust. Whisper it until you feel the heaviness lift and the heart become light as a feather. Then you may fall asleep, not with chains around your conscience, but with wings spread wide, soaring into the freedom of divine forgiveness. Thus does the second whisper prepare you for the deeper whispers to come. For only a soul unburdened can surrender fully, and only a conscience cleansed can affirm its eternal identity with God. Beloved soul, once gratitude has softened the heart and confession has cleansed the conscience, the third whisper arises as the deepest act of trust. I give thee my body, my mind, my soul, do with me as thou wilt. This is the whisper of surrender, the yielding of the reins of your being into the hands of the divine rider. All through the day the ego grasps, clings, and resists, seeking to direct every circumstance, fearing loss, demanding recognition, clutching even at its burdens as though they were treasures. But at night, when the body lies down and the soul prepares to withdraw, the futility of control becomes evident. No matter how powerful you believe yourself to be, you cannot command sleep, nor dictate your dreams, nor prevent the soul from slipping from the senses into the hidden worlds. Sleep itself is surrender, a rehearsal of that final letting go we call death. Yet how much more blessed to surrender consciously, willingly, joyfully, whispering before sleep the total offering of yourself into God's care. Imagine a weary traveler who has been holding the reins of a restless horse all day long, pulling this way and that, trying to guide the animal along rough paths. By nightfall his hands are sore, his arms weak, his heart exhausted. At last he comes upon a rider of infinite wisdom and strength who says gently, "Give me the reins and I will guide the horse." The traveler hesitates, fearing to lose control, but when at last he lets go, a profound relief floods his being. He realizes the journey was never his to manage alone. He was always meant to be led. So too with the soul. When you whisper, "I give thee my body, my mind, my soul," you are placing the reins of your life into God's hands, trusting that His wisdom surpasses your own, that His love will never betray, that His guidance will never falter. This surrender is not weakness. It is the highest courage. For what requires more bravery? To cling desperately to illusions of control that always collapse, or to release yourself into the arms of the eternal, whose will is love and whose plan is your liberation. The whisper of surrender is the whisper of freedom. It releases you from the ceaseless struggle to manage what cannot be managed and invites God to take the helm of your night voyage. As you yield, sleep becomes not unconscious drifting, but conscious resting in His will. Even the body, once surrendered, relaxes more deeply, for it no longer resists the natural tide of rest. Even the mind, once surrendered, grows quiet, for it no longer spins endless schemes. Even the soul, once surrendered, rises more easily, for it no longer drags the ballast of ego behind it. Beloved one, do not be afraid to whisper these words. Say them gently but with conviction. Repeat them until you feel a deep release, as though a great burden has been lifted. Imagine yourself laying down not only your body upon the bed, but your very self upon God's altar, saying, "I am thine. Do with me as thou wilt." In that moment, you taste the bliss that saints feel when they surrender wholly. For you recognize that your destiny is not in your fragile hands, but in the omnipotent hands of the Beloved. Thus does the third whisper turn the sleep of mortality into a rehearsal for immortality, preparing you each night for the great surrender that leads not to darkness, but to eternal light. Beloved one, having whispered gratitude to sanctify the memories of the day, having whispered confession to release its burdens, having whispered surrender to place your life in God's hands, the soul is now ready for the fourth whisper, the declaration of its eternal truth. I am thy child, ever free, ever thine. This whisper is not mere poetry, nor is it a comfort spoken to soothe oneself before sleep. It is a decree of remembrance, a proclamation of spiritual identity that carries immense power. For all through the day, the ego whispers contrary affirmations. I am this body, I am this mind, I am bound by my errors, I am defined by my circumstances. These false identifications cling to the subconscious, weaving dreams of bondage through the night and reinforcing illusions upon awakening. But when you whisper to God before sleep, I am thy child, ever free, ever thine, you engrave upon the doorway of the night a different inscription, a truth that the subconscious reads and repeats while the body rests. You are programming your soul not with limitation but with liberation. Think of an ancient temple door upon which the devotee engraves the sacred name before entering. That inscription ensures that all who pass beneath remember to bow before the holy presence. So too does this whisper engrave the soul's eternal name upon the door of sleep. Each dream you pass through, each astral corridor you walk, is lit by that remembrance. I am God's child. I am not bound. In time, this nightly affirmation grows so strong that even the deepest subconscious shadows dissolve, unable to withstand the light of identity. You awaken not only from sleep but from the deeper sleep of ignorance, remembering each morning a little more clearly that you are spirit clothed in flesh, not flesh pretending to be spirit. This affirmation also banishes fear, for what fear can remain when you know yourself as a child of the infinite? The child of a king does not tremble at shadows, for he knows his Father's power surrounds him. The child of God need not fear dream or death, sorrow or loss, for his inheritance is eternal freedom. And when you whisper, ever free, ever thine, you remind yourself that no mistake can chain your soul, no karma can erase your essence, no night can extinguish your light. You are ever free because your true self was never bound. You are ever his because no illusion can sever the bond between creator and creation. Speak this whisper slowly, with reverence and confidence. Let the words resonate within, not as a hope, but as a fact. Feel your heart lift as though chains are falling away, as though veils are dissolving. Imagine writing the words in fire across the inner sky. I am thy child, ever free, ever thine. Fall asleep with those words echoing like a mantra, and your dreams will be charged with divine memory, your subconscious filled with strength, your awakening infused with joy. Beloved one, this is no small thing. It is the reclaiming of your eternal name each night, until one day you never forget it again. Thus does the fourth whisper transform the night into a temple, and sleep into worship, by affirming the soul's everlasting union with the beloved. Beloved soul, after gratitude has softened the heart, confession has cleansed the conscience, surrender has yielded the reins, and divine identity has been affirmed, there remains the final whisper, the sweetest and most intimate of all. This is the whisper of invitation, the prayer that transforms the long hours of unconscious rest into a pilgrimage of communion. Walk with me in dreams, Lord, and awaken me in thy light. With this tender call, you are no longer simply giving thanks, no longer merely asking forgiveness, no longer only surrendering or affirming. You are inviting God himself to accompany you into the hidden realms of sleep, to hold your hand as you cross the shadowy landscapes of dream, and to awaken you not only in the morning sun but in the eternal dawn of spirit. So many drift into night, as though into exile, their dreams haunted by fears, regrets, and restless imaginings. But the devotee who whispers these words enters the astral corridors with a lantern bearer at his side. Picture yourself walking into a vast forest at night. Alone, the path is uncertain, and every shadow fills you with unease. But imagine now that beside you walks a luminous guide, a being of light whose very presence dispels the darkness. His hand in yours steadies your steps, his voice reassures your heart, his radiance illuminates the way. That guide is God, the eternal friend, who waits for your invitation, who longs to be asked, who delights when you whisper, walk with me. For though he is always present, the act of asking opens your awareness, allowing you to perceive his nearness in ways you could not before. And when you add, awaken me in thy light, You are asking not only for protection through the night, but for transformation at its end. You are saying, Lord, do not let me awaken tomorrow as I was today. Let me rise renewed, lifted, illumined, more aware of Thee, less bound by illusion. In truth, this whisper is not about a single night, but about the whole arc of existence. For every night is a little death, and every morning is a little resurrection. To invite God into your sleep is to invite Him into the great sleep of death. To ask Him to awaken you in His light is to ask for final liberation, the dawn from which there is no more night. Thus this whisper carries infinite depth, for in its simple tenderness lies the whole aspiration of the soul. To walk always with God, in waking and in dreaming, in life and in death, in time and in eternity. Speak it softly, beloved one, as a child might whisper to the parent before drifting into slumber. Stay with me. Do not leave me. Guide me even when I forget Thee. Feel the sweetness of intimacy, the trust of surrender, the joy of companionship. Let your heart rest in the assurance that no matter what dreams may come, whether shadows of fear or visions of beauty, you are never alone, for the eternal is by your side. And when dawn comes, whether in this world or the next, you will awaken not in darkness, but in light, not in confusion, but in clarity, not in exile, but in the embrace of the beloved. This is the power of the fifth whisper. It makes of the night a sanctuary, of dreams a pilgrimage, of sleep itself a rehearsal of heaven. Beloved one, now that you know the 5 whispers that transform the night into a temple of God, it is necessary to learn how to offer them as a ritual, not hurriedly, not carelessly, but with the reverence of one sealing a holy letter to be delivered into the hands of the beloved. Too often we tumble into bed exhausted, clutching our worries, our phones, our unfinished thoughts, and we drift into unconsciousness as though cast into a storm without compass. But the wise disciple does not collapse into the night. He enters it as a ceremony. He sits upright for a few moments upon his bed, spine straight as a staff of light, breath calmed into even rhythm, gaze gently lifted to the spiritual eye. He holds the heart open like a chalice, and with the tongue of devotion he whispers the 5 phrases, each one slowly, tenderly, with full feeling. First aloud, so that the vibration moves through the air and impresses the ears, then silently, until the words dissolve into pure consciousness and the heart feels they are absorbed. Imagine this practice as the sealing of an envelope. You write upon its pages all that you are, your gratitude, your confession, your surrender, your affirmation, your invitation, and then you fold it carefully, placing it into the envelope of silence. With each whisper, you melt the wax of devotion, and with the final pause of reverence, you press the seal, imprinting it with the signet of love. Then, with a gentle inward gesture, you send it to God, certain that it reaches Him, certain that it will be received in the halls of spirit. And as you lie back, your pillow becomes the altar upon which you rest, and your bed becomes the temple floor upon which you surrender body and mind. Beloved soul, do not underestimate the power of this simple nightly discipline. A few moments of whispering can redirect the currents of an entire night. They can turn what might have been restless into restful, what might have been dream shadow into dream light, what might have been wasted time into holy communion. Over weeks and months, this ritual rewrites the script of your subconscious, cleansing it of old patterns and saturating it with divine memory. And when the final sleep of death approaches, you will already be trained, for you will know how to whisper to God as you leave the body, just as you whispered to Him each night. Thus, this humble practice becomes the rehearsal of liberation, and every evening the rehearsal of awakening. Beloved child of the infinite, having walked the sacred path of these 5 whispers, you now stand at the threshold of the night, not as one weary and burdened, but as one who has laid down flowers of gratitude, emptied the stones of guilt, surrendered the reins of control, affirmed the soul's eternal freedom, and invited the beloved to walk with you through the secret corridors of sleep. Now comes the final act, the seal upon the practice, the decree that gathers all the whispers into one great surrender. Father, into Thy hands I commend my spirit. Speak it softly. Speak it with reverence. Speak it as though it were the last prayer you would ever utter, for in truth, each night may be your last rehearsal before eternity. These words, echoed from Christ at the cross and lived by saints through the ages, transform sleep into a miniature death, not feared but embraced as the gateway into God's embrace. Consider a child who has played all day and at night grows drowsy. He does not struggle, he does not fear. He simply climbs into the parent's arms, lays his head against the heart that has always loved him, and drifts into rest with complete trust. Such is the state you must cultivate each night. For what greater peace is there than to know that the eternal holds you, that the ever-loving watches over you, that the infinite shelters you as you pass beyond the waking world? In this surrender lies the highest wisdom, to realize that you were never truly safe in your own keeping, but always in His. By commending your spirit into His hands, you acknowledge what has always been, so that your soul belongs not to time, not to worry, not to fear, but to God alone. As you speak this decree, feel all striving cease. Let the mind release its last tendrils of thought. Let the body grow heavy with trust. Let the soul expand into the quiet certainty of divine companionship. Sleep then becomes not unconsciousness, but communion, not exile, but homecoming. Each night, as you whisper this final prayer, you rehearse the great liberation when one day you will leave the body behind, not with dread but with the same calm joy, whispering to the infinite, "Into thy hands I commend my spirit." And on that day, as on every night you have prepared, the Eternal will gather you tenderly and awaken you not to another dawn of earth, but to the everlasting morning of spirit. So I bless you, beloved one. May every night become a doorway into God's presence. May every whisper draw you nearer to His heart, and may every morning be an awakening not only to the light of the sun, but to the greater light that shines forever within. Rest in Him, surrender to Him, whisper to Him, until at last you never fall asleep without His name upon your lips, and never awaken without His presence in your heart. This is the final decree, the eternal lullaby of the soul, that you are God's, always and forever, and that to rest in His arms is the only true sleep, the only true peace, the only true awakening. My beloved one, you were never meant to run on your own strength, nor were you sent into this world to live by the mere impulses of flesh, emotion, and thought. You are not a beggar at the gate of energy. You are the heir to a kingdom of divine power flowing ceaselessly through the subtle currents of your being. If you feel weary, depleted, overwhelmed by your emotions, or enslaved by racing thoughts, it is not because God has abandoned you, but because you have forgotten how to plug into the cosmic source that sustains stars and galaxies and the very breath that now rises in your chest. Most people try to light their homes with the flicker of a matchstick, when within them blazes the sun of spirit, unclaimed, waiting, yearning to pour forth through the temple of body and mind as strength, as peace, as joy without reason. You see, fatigue is not merely physical, it is spiritual amnesia. When the soul forgets its origin in God, when attention descends into the whirlpool of restlessness, when the gaze falls downward into body consciousness and does not lift again into the seat of Christ, or Krishna consciousness at the spiritual eye, then the divine current falters, like a river blocked by fallen trees, like a wire tangled and disconnected from its source. But oh, when you remember, when you lift your spine, straighten your temple, breathe with devotion and stillness, and whisper in your heart, "Reveal thyself," then a new kind of vitality begins to rise, not the strength of ambition, but the calm vigor of divine remembrance, not the anxious urgency of ego will, but the sovereign peace of soul command, not the illusion of control, but the alignment with that which needs no effort to flow because it is already perfect. So listen, my child, and feel this truth vibrate in your breath. The reason you feel powerless is not because you are empty, but because you have forgotten where fullness resides. Do not run outward, return inward. Do not grasp open. Do not push a line. For the power you seek is already seated in your spine, flowing silently behind the noise of thoughts, pulsing gently beneath the surface of your breath, singing a holy vibration that says not, "Do more," but, "Be still and know that I am God." Let us now begin the sacred journey, not to accumulate energy as the world teaches, but to awaken it as the soul remembers. Shall we continue? Let me take you into the first gate, where the current begins in the breath. Child of light, before you seek to master energy, you must understand its origin not in the body, nor in the foods you eat, nor in the fleeting emotions that surge and retreat, like waves in a storm-tossed sea, but in God, the eternal source of all vibration, the ocean of consciousness, whose invisible breath sustains every atom, every galaxy, every pulse of your own heartbeat, even when you sleep unaware of the divine tide that flows ceaselessly through your being. What you call energy is not merely electricity in the nerves or chemical spark in the cells. It is the vibration of spirit made visible, audible, and feelable through the five instruments of human perception, but it is far more than sensation. For true energy is God's consciousness moving in form. And when you understand this, when you begin to feel it not merely as momentum but as presence, then your relationship to energy will change from one of control to one of reverence, from one of depletion to one of alignment, from one of chasing force to one of entering flow. The kingdom of God is not in heaven alone, it is within you, said Jesus. And so did the great rishis who beheld the same truth in their own deep silences, that the current of divine energy flows not only around you, but through you, most especially in the central axis of your being, the astral spine, the luminous river of prana that parallels your physical backbone, rising upward from the base of the spine to the point between the eyebrows, from where you may begin to perceive, not merely think about, the sacred vibration of God's presence within. That astral spine is not physical, yet it feeds the physical. It cannot be dissected, yet it is more real than flesh. It cannot be seen by the material eye, yet in deep meditation you may behold it as a river of golden light, as a path of divine electricity, up which your consciousness may rise toward cosmic awareness, just as sap rises through the trunk of a tree to blossom in the open petals of a thousand-petaled crown. To the unawakened, energy is something to generate or hoard. But to the yogi, to the awakened soul, energy is something already flowing, already holy, already divine, waiting only to be remembered and reverently directed upward. You are not a generator, you are a channel. You are not a factory of power, you are a temple of divine current. And the more still you become, the more open your breath, the more uplifted your gaze, the more you will feel that power not as tension, but as serenity, not as push, but as radiant presence. The body is like a musical instrument, and your soul is the one who must learn how to tune it, how to touch the strings of prana with such care and stillness that the melody of God begins to play itself through you, not by effort, but by vibration, not by willpower, but by remembrance. So now, beloved, having heard the truth about energy, not as a commodity, but as consciousness, not as a fuel, but as spirit, it is time for us to enter the first sacred key, the breath, through which the current becomes perceivable, through which the waves of restlessness subside, and the divine river of still vitality begins to rise again toward its source. Come, let us breathe together now, not to survive, but to awaken. Beloved soul, sit now in stillness, for it is time to remember that your breath is not a mere biological rhythm, nor a mechanical survival reflex, but a living bridge between your mind and your soul, a sacred river that flows from the shores of the finite toward the infinite. And if you have ever wondered why you feel scattered, why you grow weary by midday, why your emotions rise and fall with every gust of circumstance like leaves in the wind, it is because the breath has been forgotten, made shallow by distraction, chained by restlessness, and robbed of its spiritual dignity. But I tell you truly, to master your energy, you must first befriend your breath, not as an unconscious habit, but as a prayer, a teacher, a vehicle of the divine. From the moment you entered this world, crying into the arms of Maya, your breath has sustained you without condition, without pause, without praise. Yet how rarely have you stopped to meet it, to watch it, to honor its sacred flow, to understand that each inhale is an invitation to receive God's vibration, and each exhale a chance to release the false, the tired, the untrue, the ego chatter that clutters the temple of your inner silence. It is not the lungs alone that breathe. It is your life force, your prana, that pulses beneath the physical breath. And when you slow the breath, when you lengthen its rhythm, when you still its surface, you begin to perceive not only greater calm, but a shift of consciousness, a gentle widening of inner space, a brightness behind the closed eyes that was always there, waiting for you to come home. Now close your eyes and breathe with me, not hurried, not shallow, but with reverence. Inhale slowly to a count of 6, drawing the breath through the nostrils with a soft, silent whisper, as if welcoming a sacred guest into your inner chamber. Hold gently for 6 counts, not with tension, but with sacred pause, as if the breath is bowing before the altar of your spine. Then exhale for 6 counts, releasing all turbulence, all expectation, all noise, until only presence remains. And finally, pause again for 6 counts, resting in the holy stillness between movements, where God's vibration sings most clearly. This is the square breath, not a trick for stress, but a portal for spiritual receptivity, a rhythm through which the soul reclaims its seat at the center of your awareness, a method through which your scattered forces begin to return, like birds flying back to their hidden nest after a long storm. And now, as you continue this breathing, silently chant the sacred sound Om on the exhale, not aloud but mentally, vibrating it through the spine, feeling it rise like a golden thread from the base of your being toward the point between the eyebrows, where the spiritual eye, your doorway to cosmic perception, awaits your attention, not with demand, but with patience, like a loving friend long neglected. Let each repetition of Aum be a drawing in of the infinite, a calling forth of your true power, not the power of doing, but the power of divine being. The breath becomes your chariot, your mantra, the reins, and the inner gaze your guiding star. And as you practice this, morning by morning, even for 5 sacred minutes, you will begin to feel a change, not only in your breath, but in your day, in your thoughts, in your very spine, which begins to hum again with the quiet song of the infinite. Say now within yourself, my breath is the prayer by which I rise. My breath is the current through which God flows. My breath is not minite, is the touch of spirit, whispering, I am. And as this realization dawns, let us now ascend to the spine itself, the altar of divine power, where the energy of God moves upward through hidden gates, where the breath becomes light, and the light becomes realization. Come, let me take you there. Now, beloved, let us journey from the breath into the sacred spino, the physical court of flesh and bone which you have studied in anatomy books, but the luminous highway of divine current that lies within, invisible to the ordinary eye, yet more real than anything the senses have ever touched. For it is along this inner axis that the life force flows, the soul travels, and God speaks. And if the breath is the chariot, then the spine is the golden road leading from the limitations of the body to the boundlessness of spirit. The latter Jacob saw in vision, the tree of life spoken of in holy scriptures, the pillar of fire around which the entire temple of your being is constructed. I tell you this plainly, not to astonish, but to awaken. Your spiritual spine is not metaphor, it is divine anatomy, an astral reality veiled by your material perception, and along this spine are placed the chakras, not as decorations of personality or symbols of moods, but as divine gates, vibratory centers through which the soul's energy ascends toward God. And when you sit in stillness and straighten the body, aligning it like a sacred tower, and when you lift your gaze to the point between the eyebrows, not straining, but surrendering, and when you breathe with reverence, you begin to feel a subtle stirring, a warmth, a current that rises not from muscle nor from effort, but from the remembering of your origin in spirit. The sages of India did not speak idly when they declared that the spine is the Sushumna, the central channel of divine awakening, and the chakras, those radiant lotuses placed at intervals from the base of the spine to the crown, air, not static symbols to be studied in books or colored in diagrams, but living vibratory petals that open only through stillness, devotion, and inward attunement, not through stimulation or emotional display. For the purpose of energy mastery is not to play with powers, but to become transparent to the one power, to rise from the gross to the subtle, from the subtle to the causal, and from the causal to the pure stillness of spirit beyond all form. And if you have read that the chakras govern emotions or correspond to personality types, let me now lift you above those surface ripples and reveal the deeper truth. The chakras are not ornaments of the ego, they are altars of the soul, and each one is a threshold, a challenge, a gate that must be passed not through knowledge, but through surrender, through discipline, through love for Godin. So the first chakra, Muladhara, is the root, not of survival instincts, but of the sleeping divine energy known as Kundalini, the coiled serpent of God power. And when awakened properly, not prematurely, not recklessly, but through daily inner purity and breath awareness, it begins to rise, not in frenzy, but in peace, not an explosion, but in still ascent through the spinal temple. As the current rises through Svadhisthana, the sacral center, and on to Manipura, the navel, to Anahata in the heart, Vishuddha in the throat, and Ajna behind the spiritual eye, the energy is refined, purified, magnetized upward, until the soul begins to remember that it was never a body, never a personality, but always the radiant light of God descending into form, now yearning to ascend again, not to escape the world, but to realize that it was never apart from God to begin with. The chakras are not lights to decorate your aura, they are lamps to illuminate the upward path of return. And when the breath flows upward, and the gaze is lifted inward, and the mind is silent, then these doors begin to open not all at once. Not by force, but as flowers opening to the sun when the conditions are right. Visualize now, even as you sit quietly, a golden current, not hot, not cold, but alive with divine peace, moving gently upward from the base of your spine to the crown of your head, not imagined, but felt as a subtle presence, a holy ascent that carries no tension, no demand, only remembrance, and with each breath, feel it rising. Inhale, I lift my soul. Exhale, I surrender to thee. This is not fantasy, it is the beginning of mastery, the reclaiming of the altar within your own being, where the fire of God has never gone out. Let us now take this knowledge, not as theory, but as instruction, and step into the next moment of sacred practicing out once a year, not once a week, but each morning and night, as naturally as one drinks water or greets the dawn. For spiritual energy is not something you acquire, it is something you align with, something you live. Come now, let me guide you through a daily routine of devotion and vibration, where every hour becomes a song of inner light. Every day, beloved soul, life hands you a choice not between good and bad alone, nor merely between success and failure, but between alignment and forgetfulness, between soul consciousness and ego delusion, between flowing with the divine current or resisting it by clinging to the smallness of personality and the heaviness of worldly thoughts. And therefore, if you would become master of spiritual energy, you must treat each morning not as a mechanical resumption of habits, but as a sacred resurrection, a reawakening of your divine identity. For the currents of the previous day, the impressions of restless dreams, and the residual dust of subconscious fears all await you upon waking, and they will pull you downward again unless you rise deliberately, consciously, with breath, with gaze, with invocation. So, as your eyes open to the new day, do not first reach for your phone, nor for the noise of the outer world, for even a single careless act in those first moments can scatter the delicate threads of soul awareness that have been restored in sleep. Instead, sit upright immediately, even in your bed if necessary. Straighten your spine, as if aligning yourself with the axis of the universe, and take 3 deep, slow breaths, not to oxygenate the lungs alone, but to gather your prana, your sacred life force, from the dispersal of dreams back into the throne of the spine. Each inhale drawing in divine remembrance, each exhale releasing yesterday's illusions. As you breathe, place your right hand over your heart or gently over your spiritual eye, and inwardly affirm, not with tension but with soul certainty, I call on the divine energy within me now. And feel, as you say this, not merely the echo of words, but the subtle movement of vibration, as if the soul itself is stirring, stretching its wings within the temple of the body, reminding you, I am here. Then close your eyes lightly, not in strain but in soft inward gaze, and lift them, gently, to the point between the eyebrows, the seat of the spiritual eye, the divine command center, the inner sun that awaits the devotee's attention, like a faithful guide, and mentally chant, slowly and reverently, reveal thy energy in me, O Spirit, reveal thy energy in me, O Spirit, letting the mantra ride the breath, letting the breath ride the intention, letting the intention ride the silence, and in that stillness feel the truth that your energy is not your own, not generated by calories, caffeine, or ambition, but awakened by attunement, by harmony with the infinite current that flows through you. Yes, but does not originate from you, just as the wave rises with the ocean's will, not its own. Then, beloved, as your morning unfolds into the activities of life, your work, your relationships, your errands and obligations, Do not leave the sacred behind as if it were a mood to be visited only at sunrise. No, carry it with you in the breath, in the posture, in the intention of your spine, and at midday, when the world begins to press in, when thoughts become noisy and your energy begins to flicker, pause. Just pause, place your hand on your heart or gently on your belly, and take one deep breath, silently repeating, "Stillness is power," and remember that you are not here to react, but to radiate. Not here to strive, but to flow in God's rhythm. That single breath, offered in reverence, can realign the current of your day more than an hour of effort made in forgetfulness. And in the evening, before the day is surrendered into sleep, return once more to the spine, not merely to unwind, but to seal the vibrational gains of the day with sacred awareness. Sit in silence, close your eyes, and review the day in reverse, not to judge, but to observe where your energy flowed with God and where it leaked into ego, where you remembered and where you forgot. And as you do this, breathe slowly upward through the spine, as if reclaiming every lost moment, every scattered vibration, back into the center of your being. Say inwardly, "All energy belongs to Thee, O Spirit. Let nothing remain in restlessness." And feel, as you rest, not tiredness, but wholeness, not fatigue, but peace that comes from inner alignment. Understand this well. Energy is not created by you, it is remembered through your alignment and forgotten through your distraction. When you begin and end each day with the spine aware, the breath reverent, and the soul surrendered, you become once again what you were always meant to be, not a beggar for power, but a bearer of divine current, a living channel for the infinite to express through your thoughts, your movements, your work, and even your rest. And so we now come to the obstacles, those ancient thieves of your sacred vitality, not to fear them, but to expose them, and in that exposure, disarm them forever. Let us continue. Now let me speak to you not only as a teacher, but as your eternal friend. For every sincere seeker who begins to awaken this sacred force within will sooner or later confront the same three cunning adversaries, not demons of mythology, nor curses from without, but internal saboteurs, subtle distortions of your own awareness that masquerade as strength, disguise themselves as logic, and pretend to be your ally while quietly draining you of divine vitality. And unless you learn to recognize and disarm them, you will continue to wonder why your energy rises in moments of inspiration, only to vanish in moments of distraction, why your peace collapses at the slightest challenge, and why your soul's momentum, so carefully cultivated in morning stillness, seems to scatter like leaves in the wind before the afternoon has fully begun. The first enemy, beloved, is ego will, the seductive but exhausting impulse to force life, to grip tightly with the mind and say, "I must make this happen," as if you were a machine fueled by effort alone. But remember what I have said, will that is separated from spirit becomes tension, not power, and the ego's constant pushing, striving, defending, and reacting does not create energy, it burns through it like fire-consuming oil, until the lamp is dry and you wonder why the light has gone out. Divine will is calm, fluid, strong, but never frantic. It moves with certainty, not urgency. And when you act from alignment rather than assertion, the whole universe flows with you. For God's strength is never hurried, and the soul never begs for outcomes. It radiates inner knowing. The second enemy is mental overuse, the habit of living in your thoughts rather than in awareness, of chewing endlessly on problems, conversations, imaginary futures, and remembered wounds, all of which consume prana, the sacred life force, like leaking pipes draining a reservoir you do not see. And though the mind may pride itself on solving, planning, analyzing, it was never designed to be your master. It was meant to serve the soul, to follow intuition like a lantern follows a flame. And so when you live trapped in thoughts, even noble ones, your energy dissipates into 1,000 unreal directions, leaving your body tired and your spirit fragmented. But when you pause, breathe, feel, and return to now, you become whole again, not by solving anything, but by remembering what always was. That clarity comes not from mental noise, but from spiritual stillness. The third enemy, perhaps the most common, is emotional reactivity, the tendency to let emotions rule your responses rather than spiritual awareness. And every surge of anger, every wave of anxiety, every complaint or criticism, every grasping for approval or fear of rejection sends shock waves through your subtle system, not just temporarily agitating your peace, but imprinting jagged vibrations into your astral spine, distorting the upward current of energy and making you feel heavy, drained, and disconnected without knowing why. But emotions, though real in sensation, are not the soul's truth. They are weather, not climate, ripples on the surface of the lake, and when you identify with them, you fall. But when you witness them with calm breath and devotion, you rise not by suppressing or controlling, but by letting them pass like clouds across the sky of your awareness. Therefore, dear one, let this be your affirmation in the face of these three adversaries, not from fear, but from mastery. I do not force. I flow with divine will. I do not scatter. I return to center. I do not leak. I anchor in stillness. I rise in spirit, and spirit rises in me. Say these words not as affirmations of hope, but as declarations of being. For they are not merely true of what you wish to become, they are true of what you already are. If only you would remember. And now, let us seal this understanding, not with more thought, but with the feeling of what true spiritual energy actually is. Not an idea, not a mood, but the very breath of God moving through you. The silent radiance of the soul when it remembers its source. Let us now feel what real energy is. Now, my beloved, come with me beyond theory, beyond effort, beyond the many techniques we have named, for all these are the gate, but you must walk through to the garden itself. And that garden is not a new power you must earn, or a new identity you must create, but a return to what has always pulsed silently within you, what has always whispered in the stillness between breaths, what has always watched from behind your eyes and waited through the noise of your restlessness, through the weariness of your struggle, through the distractions of the senses and the delusions of ego pride. For real spiritual energy is not excitement, not stimulation, not force. It is quiet joy that needs no reason. It is living stillness that pulses with radiance. It is the current of God flowing through your spine like golden light, rising from the base of your being into the throne of your awareness, lighting every cell from within, not because you have demanded it, but because you have finally stopped blocking it. You ask, but how will I know when I have touched it? And I say, you will know not through a thunderclap, but through a silence so full it makes you weep. You will know when you feel joy without a cause, when peace settles in your chest like the breath of 1,000 prayers answered without words, when you walk and feel not your feet but the presence of light guiding them, when your body becomes so light you forget it, when time seems to slow, not because the world has changed, but because you have stepped out of its illusion and into the eternal now, where spirit always is, where the soul always shines, and where the kingdom of heaven reveals itself not in some distant sky, but in the beating of your heart, the rising of your breath, the quiet gaze of your uplifted eyes, and the golden current of divine energy that no longer asks, how do I become powerful? But whispers, I have never been anything but God's presence in motion. In such moments, and they will come, you will understand what I meant when I said, you feel as if you were joy itself, moving, for in that state, energy is no longer something you generate, it is something you become, and all your actions flow not from strain, but from spontaneous soul alignment. And your words carry healing not because they are clever, but because they are soaked in presence, and your breath becomes a prayer, not recited but lived, and your very gaze uplifts others not by intention, but by vibration. Because when you become a conduit for the divine energy that has always lived within you, you no longer need to speak of love, it shines through your eyes. You no longer need to preach about God, your stillness becomes the sermon. You no longer need to chase power, your very being becomes power made gentle, radiant, and free. Now sit with me, spine straight, body quiet, eyes softly lifted to the point between the eyebrows, and breathe not as a body, not as a mind, but as a soul remembering its source. And with each inhale, silently affirm, I receive, and as you hold the breath, silently affirm, I remember, and as you exhale, silently affirm, I radiate. And let this be not a technique but a sacred returning, a ritual of remembrance that you are not the flicker of the flame, but the fire, not the passing wind, but the eternal breath, not the vessel of energy, but the energy itself. For you were not made to be a seeker crawling toward God, you are the child of God waking up within Him. And the moment you align with that truth, Your energy becomes inexhaustible, your presence becomes healing, and your life becomes not a struggle to survive, but a lamp through which divine light pours into the world. Right below, if you feel called, I awaken spiritual energy now, not because these words are magic, but because they are a vow, a return, a recognition, and if you make them with the breath of your soul, the spine of your awareness, and the stillness of your gaze, I promise you, you will begin to feel not tomorrow, not after mastery, but now that your breath is a temple, your spine a river of light, and your life a flame lit not by effort, but by remembrance. And that remembrance, dear one, is the first and final step into mastery. Let this be the beginning. Let this be the prayer. Let this be the power. Let this be the presence of God, alive in you forevermore.